What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Morello Show. Happy to be back, of course. Episode number 29. I got it right this time. I said it was 29 last time. It was wrong. It was actually 28. So glad we got that squared away. I, of course, am your host, Kyle Morello. We're decked out in Temple gear today. Not really planned, just kind of happened. So that's okay. Got to represent the Owls. With me today, very happy I have this guy on. Paul Boy Green Esden Jr. How we doing, Paul?
I'm doing amazing, man, because I'm immediately thinking of the Temple people like Muhammad Wilkerson and Robbie Anderson and all our Temple pride,
Yes.
out there. So
I
love it, baby. Say that one more time.
Todd Bowles, too.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, right.
Yes.
Exactly. Todd Bowles of great fame, both as a player and a coach, 100%.
Yes. Surprisingly, there's a lot of Temple connections in the NFL, which you wouldn't really think coming from, a not Power Six, but a group of six school.
Yeah, Matt Rule, 100%.
Yep. Son Reddick, too, back with the Eagles now.
Yes,
so.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's got a big money deal this offseason for the Eagles.
Yes, he
Very
did.
nice.
Yes, he did. So yeah, a lot of Temple love in the NFL. We're not going to talk about the Owls right now, though. We're going to talk about the New York Jets. Of course, we have to. I mean, we're almost at the draft. Draft
Sure.
is about a week and a half. No, not a week and a half. 2.5 weeks away.
Yes. Yeah.
And there's seemingly been endless mock drafts and talk, and as it comes every year, or when we get to early to mid-April, and there's nothing really going on. So, we're going to continue that because it's tradition at this point. So. Paul, we're going to talk some Jets here. We're going to talk some Jets draft stuff. First things first, with these mock drafts and stuff, everybody always wants to talk about, who we're taking, because the Jets have 4 and 10. So who's going to go 4, who's going to go 10, other places in the draft. I really don't think we can talk about the draft without addressing the needs that the Jets are going to do in the draft. So what are some of the top priorities for the Jets in this year's draft?
How much time do we have? It's not as bad as some years before. I only joke a little bit, but, obviously you got to start right off the top at edge rusher. I mean, we've been talking about this for God knows too long, quite frankly. And again, the insert Jets punchline, and hopefully this changes. Hopefully it's like the best one since Carl Lawson, the best one since Kayvon Thibodeau. Hopefully it's one of those, but right now it's the best one, of course, since John Abraham. That's a guy we've been hunting for. That's the guy that's been on the side of milk cartons for the last 15 years as we're trying to find the next guy. Yeah. But that's got to be, numero uno for me. And I know some people will say on paper, and I've been seeing this lately, which I think is kind of strange in the Jets community out there in social media land, that, hey, we got Carl Lawson, we got JFM, we got Bryce Huff, we're solid. Maybe it's not as big of a need as some people said. And I went like, not sure I'm looking at the same thing here. Because again, I love Carl Lawson. I begged for him in free agency for the Jets. Thought he was a great fit, one of my favorite players. And it was one of those rare matches where you hope for something and it actually comes to fruition in terms of that player ending up coming to the Jets. And while I think he could still be a stud, a ruptured Achilles is no joke. That's a very serious injury. And it's very hard to be the same player post Achilles. Now, there's been wonderful advancements in medical technology that make that a little bit more realistic. But still, if you're the Jets, I think you owe it to yourself to make sure you attack the position and double dip, quite frankly, in the NFL draft at that edge rusher position, because you don't know what you're going to get from Carl. Whatever you get to me, I think is gravy. You have to attack it as if you don't know what you're getting. Wide receiver, of course. I love Elijah Moore, love his potential. Corey Davis, I think, is due for a bounce back season, inevitable bounce back season. There was just so much uncharacteristic stuff. When I talked to Tennessee people when he came over, people said that the one thing you'll know about Corey Davis, now, the number one wide receiver talk, the Titans people said, we're not so sure about that. But what we are sure about is he's a high floor guy. He's not going to bust. That was one of the direct quotes I got from Bill. I said, oh, great, phenomenal. We've had enough busts with Jets and free agency. So uncharacteristic stuff, the drops. He's supposed to be a contested catch guy. He dropped a lot of those early. I remember the Denver game. In these key moments that could have changed and flip field position and change games, maybe he had uncharacteristic drops, fumbles, injuries, so many things that just went wrong. So I think he's due for a bounce back season, but you need that number one, that true alpha that can then just change the entire dynamic of an offense, because opposing defensive coordinators have to, game plan for that guy. They're missing that guy. That's another need. For me as well. And I'm going to say it, and I know this is going to make a lot of people angry, so hopefully it gets this show a lot of clicks.
We'll
it's
see.
The offensive line. It's such a need. particularly at tackle. Like I like guard. I love AVT. You have Laken Tomlinson in there who's been just so goddamn reliable, which is nice. And I could understand if you want to upgrade at center, but that's a little lower on the priority list for me. But offensive tackle is so big. You can't have Connor McDermott one play away from going in there. Chuma Edoga one play away. You need a guy. So I would be willing to Joe Namath guarantee on this goddamn show that they're the Jets with one of their top picks. Again, they had 4 picks in the top 38, 2 first, 2 second. They're taking an offensive tackle in one of those picks. I'm ready to guarantee it. Now, who? We could debate and discuss who that could potentially be, whether all the way from Ike Ekwonu to Trevor Penning, but I guarantee that's happening. So those are 3 of the top ones, but again, you could go even deeper than that. Safety, corner, off-ball linebacker, defensive tackle. I think they even still throw another dart at tight end, power running back. Again, we could just go on and on. I mean, they got a lot of needs, but those are the top 3, I'd say.
Well, for a team that's won 6 games in the last 2 years, definitely is a lot of holes to fill.
Right on course.
Yes, right on course. But, like you said, they made some improvements in the offseason and free agency so far. And no, I did want to mention the one point you had, though, with Carl Lawson. Like, you can't really rely on him to be the guy we thought we were going to get in training camp last year. Apparently, he was having an unreal camp. And I'm sad that we didn't get to see him during the year. But people can come back from Achilles, though. I mean, you look at Kevin Durant in the NBA, who's obviously he's struggling to stay on the court a little bit with different issues, but when he's on the court, he's phenomenal. To a lesser extent, to Marcus Cousins. So yes, Jets fans, like, we can hope for the best, but it's also ruptured Achilles for someone who uses their legs more often than any other body part. I feel like when rushing the passer, you got to use your legs to get a good position. So, I agree with you. I think edge is the top priority, which we can get to in a second when we do a little, maybe not mock draft, but talk about who they could get. And I think wide receiver is probably next. So let's, without further ado, get into that. So Jets are on the clock at number 4. Obviously, we don't know who's going to be gone yet in the top 3, but depending on that, who do you see them taking 4th overall? Most likely.
Yeah, I will say this to just kind of do this reverse order thing here. Again, wide receivers off the board for me, and I like a lot of them, and we could go through this and probably at 10 when we're talking about that, or second round or what have you. But at 4, it's completely off the board. Anyone that takes a wide receiver at number 4 in these mock drafts, again, there's a lot of them, and I will say this. Opposed to some people, I love mock drafts. I can't have enough. So I know there's some people that are counting down the days. I see that on the timeline, like 18 days, phenomenal. I can't wait to stop talking about it. Me. I love mock drafts. So feed them to me. I think it's great conversation pieces for podcasts and shows and see the natural arc throughout an off season. But those people are Looney Tunes. They're the psych ward is where they need to go. There's no chance in hell that the Jets go with a wide receiver number 4. I think that is just bonkers. So we're going to remove that chess piece off the board. I think the decision ultimately comes down to edge or offensive line with an outside shot at corner again, because there can be, again, to your point, to start all of this, we don't know who's going to be on the board at 4. We don't know what kind of craziness could ensue. This is one of the craziest NFL drafts in recent memory where there's just so much uncertainty. There's no like, oh, well, of course Joe Burrow is going number 1, or of course this guy's going here. There's none of that in this class, quite frankly. Even now, we're only a couple weeks out from this draft, that there's no guarantee that Aiden Hutchinson is going number 1, which some people thought. Kayvon Thibodeau a couple months ago that he could be the guy. But long story short, to get back here again, I think there are 3 positions that could be possible in order. I think it's edge, offensive line, and then an outside shot at corner if somehow they get the intel that the Giants would go after Sauce, and then they kind of it's a interesting game of chicken of who can we take and then still get at 10 and still get our guy. And you got to judge the teams that are in between destination A to destination B. I'd go for edge, and for me, if it's up to me, and there may be a difference between what I want and the team wants, but me, I'm going Kayvon Thibodeau. He's been my favorite player since last fall. I'm slamming the table for this guy. I don't give a flying hoot. I don't care if he cares about his brand. I don't care if he likes to write poetry in his free. I don't give a flying hoot. He can do whatever the hell he wants. As long as on Sundays, he's lining up and sacking every quarterback in the AFC East. Come on down. Price is right. Kayvon Thibodeau, come on down. He can run down with the family, kiss some babies, sign some autographs. That's who I want. And like I said, the outside shot guy, and again, we'll see if he's there, Ezeki Aquanu. Man, if you could be a fly on the wall in that draft room, 10 minutes on the clock, they hear the Texans pick comes in, and then somehow, some way, Kayvon Thibodeau and Ike Aquanu are on the board. That
Oh boy.
is an interesting, juicy thing. And maybe it doesn't happen. Either one could be gone realistically. But I think that's the conversation. If it's up to me, I'm taking KT, baby.
I 100% agree. I think Kayvon Thibodeau is definitely the best and most realistic prospect that we could draft it for. I think obviously he had talk of going number one overall going into the season. Obviously people are concerned about some of the things like you mentioned with not necessarily off field issues, but not being as focused on football as people would like him to be. But you have to have a little bit of work-life balance. It's just work for these guys, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm not mad at that whatsoever. I think KT would be the perfect guy for us. Like you said, we need someone. It's been since John Abraham. I was barely born when we had John Abraham. So what was it, 2000, I think?
Yes, it was the 2000 draft. Of course, that's a famous four first round picks. And then like the years were like, the last of them was in the early mid 2000s, like 2004-ish range when, his rookie contract runs out and then the franchise tag and trading and all that jazz. Yeah. So, good times.
At the end of the 2004 season, I was in kindergarten. So it's been a while. We need an edge rusher, the Jets.
Yeah.
So I would not be mad at that whatsoever if we got KT. Now with Ike Aquanu, I was really high on him probably a few months ago since we got Laken Tomlinson, and I'm confident Mekhi will come back healthy. I'm not as high on drafting an offensive lineman. I do think it is. I don't know if it's like a need. I think it's more of like it would be great, but we don't have to spend a first round pick on him. You know what I mean? So
I do want to carry over what you just said, because I think that's such an important point that we haven't talked enough about, because you said it, you nailed it, that I think the offensive line conversation for Jet fans on a whole, and it's hard to generalize people, but before Laken Tomlinson, I think a lot of us convinced ourselves like, okay, the Jets want Icky, no problem. You draft him, you plug him in at guard, which he's more than capable of. And then in a year, or insurance, whichever comes first, right? Because Fant's a pending free agent. Becton's future is uncertain, obviously, with how he's going to bounce back. And if you have Icky at right guard, phenomenal. He's going to be a tremendous guard. And then if anything breaks loose, Fant gets injured, Becton gets injured, boom, kick him out to tackle. You're great. The perfect insurance policy. And you could use like an LDT, who's someone I think the Jets should bring back. Mutual interest there. We'll see if that happens. And he could have come off the bench in this made up scenario. But obviously, they signed Laken Tomlinson, which changes the mind for you. And I think a lot of Jets people would say, oh, okay, now someone's got to sit. I didn't know math was going to be a part of this show, but as far as I know, there's five offensive linemen, tackle, guards, and center. And if Becton, Fant are your tackles and you have Icky, your guards are covered. AVT ain't coming off the field. Laken Tomlinson ain't coming off the field. Connor McGovern sure as hell ain't coming off the field, because only his versatility only goes to guard, not tackle. So then you go to the tackles. And to me, again, you draft Icky. Icky's ass ain't sitting on the bench after you took him fourth overall, so he's plugging in somewhere. And I think if Becton, to your point, comes back, and it's obviously certainly possible based on everything we've seen from workout videos and everything else, if he comes back, then you've got Becton and Icky, which would be a phenomenal offensive line, by the way. But then you're paying Fant somewhere in the ballpark, whatever it ends up being, 9-10 million with the loose change to ride the bench. That's an expensive insurance policy. And I'm curious if the Jets are willing to do it. But I think that's an important part of the conversation that has not been discussed enough since Laken Tomlinson was added in. And again, as we talk about mock drafts, things change with pre-free agency, pre-combine, post-combine, Senior Bowl, everything else. I think that has changed the conversation. Not enough people are talking about that, which I think has changed the narrative for a lot of people with that decision to potentially go Icky.
No, absolutely. I mean, and that's not even just with the offensive line position. I mean, with any position, when you go into free agency and trades and whatnot, and you start filling those holes, your conversation around the draft changes things. So I think they could, like you kind of mentioned earlier, they can maybe look at like a Trevor Penning, like around 2 or 3. They can look at somebody else a little later. Maybe they want to trade down and acquire more assets. If they wanted an offensive lineman from 4 or 10, there's a lot of possibilities, which is great when you have the draft capital that the Jets have. So a lot of possibilities there. I do want to touch on number 10 though, too.
Yes.
So let's say we pencil in Kayvon Thibodeau at number 4 for us, if he's still on the board, of course.
Sure.
Because we had talked about that.
Yeah.
We go to number 10, and my preference personally would be wide receiver.
Okay.
Except if it was Sauce Gardner. If he was still there, I would maybe consider him. I have a point that I want to bring up to you though, and this is something I've been thinking about. All the talk about wide receivers is Garrett Wilson, who I would love. You had a little bit of talk of Chris Olave. Don't know if he goes that high. Drake London. great catch rate, great contested catch like radius, but separation questions with him. I don't know if he's the quickest. Kind of compared him like a poor man's Mike Evans right now, which would be great. But
Yeah,
I've
sure.
seen that. I think if the Jets were going to go to wide receiver at number 10, the most logical choice, maybe not most logical, I think the most exciting choice that they should do is drafting Jameson Williams at number 10. Now, coming off the ACL in the national championship, obviously, but before that, he's the number 1 receiver in the class. He's the
Yeah.
fastest receiver in the class. And you look at the Chiefs, how they use Tyreek Hill, not saying Zach Wilson will be like Patrick Mahomes, but has a big arm. And speed kills in the NFL. Teams that are fast and move around a lot and can create space are the teams that win games. So I think the perfect wide receiver for the Jets would be Jameson Williams. Maybe they don't nurture him back to health right away. Maybe he plays in October, November for his first game, but Giants did that with Odell Beckham too. He was coming off that injury. He didn't play till October his rookie year. So I don't know what you think of that, but I think Jameson Williams to the Jets at 10 would be a wise choice.
I think a lot of fans have wrongfully, what's the right way to put this? I think a lot of Jet fans have wrongfully wrote that off the list. They've crossed it off the list as a possibility. As soon as that ACL injury happened, and again, devastating, I hate it for the kid. And, luckily this injury is more easy to come back from in advancements of medical technology, as we've talked about before. So that's encouraging news. The recent workout video he sent to Schefter from his agent, that's encouraging news. His hope of coming back by training camp is encouraging. Maybe a little aggressive, but nonetheless, again, when you're drafting, to me, it's a long range, not short range. I'm not drafting him for week 1. I mean, I'd love for him to be out there, especially with the first round pick and investing that highly, and especially the ripple effects of it. You're drafting that for Zach Wilson. So for me, I would be excited about the addition. And quite frankly, I think it is very much in the conversation for the Jets. Some people may be surprised. Me and you ain't going to be one of them, pal.
Nope.
When they go Goodell walks his ass up to the podium, goes number 10 overall, Alabama, boom, Jameson Williams, let's ride. Like, I could 100% see that happening. Now, the only thing they have to make sure they cover their cheeks on for this, if they decide to make that move, which again, I'm all for, is you have to have somebody else. Now, whether you combine that with another rookie in the mid rounds, again, the Jets have 9 picks in this draft, whether that's 69 third round, or maybe you wait to the 4th round where you got a couple of double dips, both in the 4th and 5th. Maybe that's where you wait. But I think you need another player, and maybe also like a high floor veteran. Maybe that's Keelan Cole. Maybe they say, we want somebody else, someone new to add to the mix. You need somebody to cover the time that Jameson Williams is going to miss, because you can't just roll out Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, and Braxton Berrios, because you're one injury away from Jeff Smith, those guys of the world. No offense, but I mean, you can't be that, because again, you have to prepare. You have to hope for the best, expect the worst. That's how I live my life. Okay. I'd hope for a lot of great things to happen, but I have to be prepared just in case something shitty is going to happen. Excuse my friend. So
I had no worries.
So, I think that's key for the Jameson Williams. It's the move to the move. I'm all for taking Jameson Williams. I think he's the best wide receiver overall in this class, although there's a lot of different flavors that I like that, you could sell me on. Olave, as I've said on a few shows, he's a firm 5th for me in the Power 5 wide receiver rankings. I just don't like the frame. I don't like his ability after the catch. This is like a weird side tangent on trashing Olave apparently on the show. But again, the frame, I feel like he could get pressed at line of scrimmage. He's not going to know what to do. And then again, the ability after the catch, I question severely. And that's a major bread and butter of this offense. So he kind of scares me a little bit. All the other 4 I love. So I could, if the Jets drafted any of the other 4, and of course those other 4, Drake London of USC, Treylon Burks of Arkansas, Jameson Williams, of course, of Alabama, and then Garrett Wilson of Ohio State. Any of those you could completely sell me on, and I'd be excited. First round receiver. Come on, that hasn't happened since Santana Moss when we were talking about you in kindergarten.
Yes,
so,
correct.
It's been a hot second. But on Jameson Williams, super fast. And again, the other thing we have to try to determine here, and we'll only know based on the results, but Joe Douglas was sniffing around Tyreek Hill, and the most Tyreek Hill-ish wide receiver. Again, it's impossible to compare him, just like you said, with Mike Evans, Drake London. It's not a 1-for-1, but as close as it's going to get is that elite speed of Jameson Williams, who could just bring this vertical passing element to the game that I think could just match beautifully salt and pepper yin to yang with Zach Wilson's rocket launcher arm. I just think that could be a beautiful combination. If you take the top off of defense, all of a sudden they got to back up a step, run game, and everything else can take over from there. I'd be all for it. It'd be juicy, but you need to pair it. You can't just have Jameson Williams by himself. It's just not fair to him. It's not fair to the expectations of the offense. You need both a high floor veteran, quite frankly, and I would go with another mid-round rookie receiver. The receiver class, quite frankly, is deep. There's a lot of interesting options in the mid-rounds, but that's what I would have to do if I take Jameson, which, again, I'm completely okay with.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, a couple of points that you mentioned, like bringing back Keelan Cole, I think is something the Jets should absolutely do. Not that he's going to change the game or anything, but it's someone reliable for Zach Wilson that he's worked with for a year, knows this offense for a year. He's a veteran. He's been around, so he can help, maybe help Jameson Williams or whoever the Jets would maybe draft, nurse back to health and, have that veteran locker room presence in the wide receiver room. Not that Corey Davis isn't, of course, but someone who's been around the block too a little bit. So definitely would like that. Yeah, I mean, Olave, I don't know. Not that we want to trash Olave even more, but I don't, not that high. Not that high.
No, I think it's too rich.
I do too. And Treylon Burks, I think could be good. I don't know if I would do it that high either. But we could also be throwing all this out the window and Sauce Gardner's on the board because I think we would.
How tempting would that be? Come on. The combination potentially of KT and Sauce. Like, I get it. You want to help out Zach Wilson, but defense would help out Zach Wilson. You get your number one corner and a number one pass rusher, help out two levels of your defense, which of course would make the middle level even better with CJ Mills and Quincy Williams. Like, you're going to open up opportunities for them to scream down at the line of scrimmage. You have your corners. If he can lock down one side, the rest of the depth automatically gets better. Just one peg down. You have DJ Reed, who we're about to find out about, on the other side. So you got DJ Reed, Sauce Gardner, MC2 in the slot, and then you just have Bryce Hall, Brandon Eccles, who have starting experience. Now we're cooking with gas. Now we're like, okay, now we're operating with something. I think they were pleasant. I was, rather. The Jets team felt good about their corners. I did not, but I was pleasantly surprised by the results. But you know what? I think it's only going to help to add more juice, add more talent, and Sauce. I mean, come on. I mean, unbelievable. You would have to trade up for another receiver, which, again, you have the picks to do it. So whatever. There's 5 receivers that are expected to go in the first round. You could easily trade up, be aggressive. They've been aggressive all offseason. I don't know why now they would stop. And think of that. 3 first-round picks for the Jets and having that kind of, 2 defensive superstars who I think they're going to be in the NFL, and then whatever receiver. Oh, yeah. That's a dream draft, baby.
It is a dream draft. And listen, like you mentioned, helping out Zach Wilson. You know what would really help out Zach Wilson? Having time to be on the football field because your defense shuts down their offense.
Exactly.
That helps out your offense. That helps out your young quarterback. So if Sauce is there, I'm taking him over anybody at 10. I think he's the priority at 10. But Jameson Williams would be someone I would definitely look at because that would, like you said, take the top off the defense. It changes the whole entire offense. I
just wonder if he makes it there. That's my big question because the Giants scare the crap out of me. I think they love Sauce. The only way I think he survives personally is I think the Giants are 100% taking offensive linemen. So Evan Neal, Ickey, Charles Cross, whoever at 5. But if they trade 7, which is possible with, or they trade 5, one or the other, they trade one or the other, either jump in front for quarterback needy teams in front of Carolina or 7 that they could trade. I think that's where Sauce, okay, now it's possible that he can slip. If they don't trade, it seems hard to believe that they would pass on him with that, Wink Martindale defensive philosophy coming over from Baltimore, where you get that number 1 true corner. And they're probably going to move on from James Bradbury. That just highlights the issue. That to me is hard to believe. But again, if they trade, which is possible, because again, they're looking for the long range. The Giants are terrible right now. They're just a terrible roster, no cap space whatsoever. But if they move, then all of a sudden my hope goes from whatever, like 20% no chance. Wait a second. Boop, 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 boop. That starts raising up pretty quick. Like,
nope. I 100% agree. And I mean, that's the risk the Jets would have to take at passing on him at 4 because it's arguable to take him at 4. Like, I wouldn't be upset if the Jets took Sauce Gardner at 4. I would prefer an edge rusher like Kayvon Thibodeau. If Aiden Hutchinson were to fall, maybe him, or not maybe him. If he were to fall, absolutely. I just don't think he will. But that's the risk you take if you pass on Sauce at 4. You don't know if he's going to make it to 10. But if he does make it to 10, I think he's the priority at 10.
And vice versa, right? So if you take Sauce at 4, you are begging and praying to the sweet lords above that an edge falls to 10 because, boy, I mean, you could easily see, because if you're taking Sauce at 4, that means a lot of the edge players must have went. Trayvon Walker must have went. Kayvon Thibodeau, Aiden Hutchinson, likely to create that scenario where you would really think about it at 4 and the Giants lurking. which means we have at least 2 or 3 coming off the board. And then you have to wait all the way to 10. And then Seattle's lurking. Giants with trench warfare is lurking. I'm like, oh boy, who's going to be? Is Jermaine Johnson even going to be?
Just going to say, like, would you take a
that gets
Jermaine
scary.
Johnson at 10? Like, I don't know if I do.
But see, that's the thing. I'm not as high on Jermaine Johnson. I've talked to a lot of people as part of my interviews and everything, and there's been both sides. Some people pounded the table for Jermaine Johnson, Leger Douzable, Connor Rogers, Connie Carberg is another one. But I've had just as many KT people as me who I have KT over Jermaine. He's my number one player overall on the board, over Aiden Hudson, over anybody. And there's some people on my side too. It's a split room right now, quite frankly, depending on who you talk to, which Jets draft enthusiast you speak with. But man, Jermaine just scares me, man. He did like basically nothing at Georgia. And the overarching just excuse for that is, well, they were really talented. Okay, so he wasn't good enough to get on the field. Okay. And then he finally gets on the field this past season, looks phenomenal for Florida State, has a great offseason at the Senior Bowl and everything else, and he's just rising up the boards, and that's all well and good. But Kayvon didn't just have one really good year. He's had multiple good years. So to me, and the elite first step is unbelievable. You can't deny that. No one else can hold his jockstrap with the elite first step. So that's where I'm like, okay, what are we fighting over here? I just feel like Kayvon is the swing for the fences, home run superstar that he can be. Jermaine, I'm a little underwhelmed, quite frankly.
Jermaine Johnson to me is Vernon Golson, which
wow, I haven't heard that one yet. I've heard that for Trayvon Walker, but interesting.
I have heard that for Trayvon Walker too, but like just when you talk about flying up draft boards, like in 06, he was one of those guys who flew with the draft boards. Granted, he went to Ohio State, obviously, but I wasn't, even though I was 7 years old, but I wasn't happy with it at the time. Like I was following college football even then too, and I was like, I don't know.
I wanted Darren McFadden in that draft, to be honest with you.
I did.
I really wanted him. He ended up going 4 to the Raiders, but I definitely wanted him at 6. Yeah.
I was also a big Darren McFadden fan at the time, which would have been great for that team. But you know, it is what it is. But I don't know about Jermaine Johnson. Also, George, I can't say his
George Karlaftis. Oh my God, I hate that guy.
I don't.
I'm sure he's a good person, but like, I mean, you watch the tape. There's just no pop. I look for bendiness. I look for look at like wow plays, and he just seems like, and God for his soul. Okay, he just seems like a blue collar man. I'm gonna give it my all, and I'm gonna be really strong. And again, I don't know if strength will translate like that to the NFL, where you could just try to out muscle guys. So if you can't be bendy and you can't out muscle guys, what are you going to do? Like, okay, maybe he's on a bus. Maybe he's just a solid Brian Thomas, tip of the cap for Jets history there. And he's just a solid locker room guy. I'm not looking for just a solid dude. I'm looking for a superstar. So that's another one. Ugh, that'd be underwhelming.
That would be extremely underwhelming, especially at that draft position at number 10. That would be no. One last thing I wanted to touch on before we get out of here. Obviously, the Jets have 2 high second-round picks, which there's some guys who might fall off from the first round that we thought were going to go that the Jets could maybe draft there. But I want to get your opinion on some day 2 guys who, and whether this is the second round or the third round, who are some day 2 guys that you could see the Jets drafting or that you would like? Like for me, I think the Jets draft Chad Moom in the third round. I think that would be a great one.
Interesting.
Who are some guys for you that maybe you're looking at?
Oh my gosh. I will say some of the names I say all the time just because I'm in Boye Mafe out of Minnesota to me. And even if you go KT or whatever edge you want at 4, I would still strongly consider going edge again, just because first off, edge is important. Robert's house scheme, he rotates guys. We saw Quentin Williams actually. He played like one of the lowest snap percentages of his career, despite him being as good as everyone thinks he is. Again, he just rotates guys. So people are always going to get on the field in this alignment. So with that being said, Boye Mafe, to me, I think it's going to be a much better pro than he was in college. The traits, Senior Bowl connection again. The Jets were down there, and we'll have to reshare that video. One Jets Drive did like a little teaser, and it showed like Joe Douglas and Robert. They didn't show the player obviously, but they talked about that guy is unbelievable. Could you believe that guy? And then we're all going to be guessing in a couple weeks here, who were they talking about? Because I'm sure they're going to draft one of those guys down for the Senior Bowl. And it'll be interesting to go, oh, they were talking about that guy. It could very well be Boye Mafe, who's a freak. So I love him. Let's see. I'm trying to think of positions where they could go. Again, I would be underwhelmed if they waited at wide receiver. I think that's a kind of a prevailing thought on social media, because again, if you're waiting for Jahan Dotson, Sky Moore, I like George Pickens a lot out of Georgia.
Me too.
Who else? Christian Watson. Like again, it just feels like a lazy weak ass attempt to fill wide receiver. Just you address whatever. And again, I think a dream draft could be like KT and Sauce, right? 4 and 10. That's possible, right? So you take that and then just wait at wide receiver. Again, I would love the first round. We would go on these shows and I would bang the table and say, wow, what a draft. But I would just be super underwhelmed if they just waited at wide receiver and hope to get lucky, hope to get Elijah Moore and go, oh, wow, that worked out. Because what if they don't? What if a wide receiver run happens and then there's just garbage there? You already tried to trade for a number 1 wide receiver. That hasn't worked so far. I love the move and the thought process to be aggressive, but that bailout doesn't sound like it's coming. Maybe it does in the next 3 weeks, which would be awesome. But let's say that doesn't happen. Then you're just going to force peg a Jahan Dotson or Pickens or any one of these guys. That's somewhat underwhelming. That's like, we're trying to help out Zach Wilson, and the receiving corps basically looks the same except for insert either super small guy, which that concerns me with some of those receivers in the second round. I just don't want a bunch of carnies, little people, right. Nothing. I'm vertically challenged as well. So, I'm not just trashing my short people out there in the universe, but, I want a big boy. That's why I'm interested by Drake London. That's why I'm interested by some of these guys. So that would kind of scare me at wide receiver. Offensive line could be fascinating if like a Tyler Smith at offensive tackle, because I think one way or another, you have to get the insurance at offensive tackle, because I think if you wait too long, then okay, so the equivalent of Chuma Edoga is waiting, who is a former 3rd-round pick at a USC. Like, is that going to be the break-the-glass emergency if Becton or Fant goes down? You can't have that for Zach Wilson. The season would be over. So you need something stronger. So maybe that's Tyler Smith. He could be possible there. And I'm just trying to think of all the other potentials. You could go corner. I've heard good things about Roger McCreary out of Auburn. He could be kind of interesting at corner. I love Kobe Bryant. And again, the name's phenomenal, obviously, but Cincinnati, he's another super talented guy.
Trey McBride, maybe Colorado State.
I think they'd be rich. I do think, though, that the Jets are obviously they have CJ Uzomah and Tyler Conklin. I do think they're going to spend a tight end, a pick on a tight end on day 3 of the draft, which will be in that 4 through 7 range, and that could be Isaiah Likely, who they brought in for a top 30 visit out of Coastal Carolina, a crazy receiving threat. He's in the conversation for sure. And if Trey McBride slips, the one I'll give you the tip of the cap is if he's there at 69, which would seem impossible early in this process, seems more likely now because of the tight end position and just the value of everything else, and them saying it's deep, we can wait. Maybe all that waiting, all of a sudden the Jets go, he's right here. And again, it's that Michael Carter, Elijah Moore, one Jets drive background. I can't believe this guy's on the board, and they take him because you could get a young guy that could help out immediately. In more jumbo formations, you can get really crazy to try to have extra blockers in that also have receiving prowess, like a Trey McBride. That could be fascinating. But I think more likely, outside of him dropping, would be like a likely, Jeremy Ruckert is another one that could certainly slip on day 3. So tight end makes sense. I'm trying to think of obviously we talked about off-ball linebacker. So Chad Muma would certainly make sense. Christian Harris, potentially, depending on where he
Christian
falls.
Harris.
He's a guy I really love a lot. I just think, again, he checks off a lot of the boxes that Joe Douglas would look for when you look at winning program, Alabama, obviously, and just a winner. Again, they're trying to bring that quote-unquote championship pedigree with a lot of these guys like Uzomah, Jordan Whitehead, all these key, Laken Tomlinson, of all these free agents that have had championship winning success, and kind of blending them together with old and new. That certainly could be. And then safety, how did we ignore that? So Jaquan Brisker, yes. Dax Hill, Lewis Seen, if he's there, out of Georgia, talking about Georgia boys. So I think safety is really high on their list. That could be in the day 2 range as well. That's possible. So, man, so many options, which is good. Good news if you're the Jets, because you have so many picks and teams won't be able to guess what you're going to do. But, wow, they just have a huge opportunity. I think John Ledyard said it on my show. This is a foundational opportunity to turn this franchise around. They hit some pretty good dingers in 2021. Now it's about encore. Follow it up. Make sure it wasn't a fluke.
Exactly. And, we saw the 2020 draft class not be very overwhelming at all. But the 2021 was a good draft class for us. At least it seems like us so far. So, even if you get somewhere in the middle of that of 22, obviously you want it to be more like 2021. But
sure,
now's the time. I mean, we have our quarterback. It seems like, hopefully, we have other pieces around. We have the coaching staff. It looks like it's a good coaching staff finally. So
yeah.
Need the pieces, and we have the draft capital for it this year, more than any year we've had in quite some time. So
I'm very optimistic. I'll say this. I think Robert Saleh, again, was one of the coaches I really wanted. I just think he brought the right energy and I think I mentioned this when Rex Ryan was hired. He was exactly what we needed at that time in history. Like after coming off Mangini, we needed juice. We needed a guy who was like not quiet, who was loud, abrasive, even quite frankly, and just revved up the city, revved up the fans, revved up the players, and then it allowed us to go on this run. There were some talented roster teams there, obviously from the Tannenbaum and Mangini building, but that core and the energy was just perfect. And then at this time in history, after the horrible Adam Gase thing, which again I still can't even believe that happened. He was the one coach I didn't want. That Saleh comes in here with his energy, chutzpah, winning pedigree, San Francisco. Like, I think he's exactly what we need. And I like the level head of Joe Douglas. I love his ability to trade. That has been fantastic. But obviously the proof is in the pudding. It's about winning. But I will tell you from my perspective, I'm incredibly optimistic about where this team is heading and the pieces that are there. Obviously it all lives and dies with Zach Wilson. The 2021 draft class was amazing. And we could talk about all those guys. But again, what the quarterback becomes will ultimately define the legacies of everyone involved.
Yes, I 100% agree. And I'm optimistic too. I think it's going to be, maybe not playoffs this year, but if we at least compete and we're on the right track,
doorstep.
Okay,
that's what I'm hoping for. Doorstep and competition. I've had enough of these 1-7 seasons where literally it's over. Like the Adam Gase year where they went 7-9, they started like 1-7. So we knew it was over. So even the 7-9 record on the surface, taking a step back, are like, wow, not bad. They were right there, but they really weren't if you actually look at it and you were in the moment. So that's what I want. 5-4, 6-3, whatever, and just in the hunt, in the conversation, like, wow, there's a chance here. If you squint, they could be in the playoffs. That hasn't happened since 2015, and it's been a long time. It's 7 years for God's sake. Like it's just been far too long of that just negativity brewing. I want to do these shows and we're excited, like, oh my God, the Jets are coming off a win. Oh wow, they're in position here, and this and this and this. There's just been not enough of that, quite frankly, to a blunt level. So it's about wins. The fact of the matter that, well, I don't even think Joe Douglas has won an AFC East game yet, that they're like 0-12 for like the last couple of years. Like, that's disgusting. Like, good Lord. Like, we need to, that's where it starts. You have to compete in your division. You have to, and Steve Weiss just said this on the official Jets podcast, you build your roster, compete for the division, because that's the path. You can't worry about the wild card and all that. The division is your clear path. And obviously the Bills are there, but that's the thought you have to do, the mentality in building roster construction. That to me has got to be the key. But before we even talk about winning a division, how about winning a division game? That would be a good start if that could happen sooner rather than later.
Correct. And hey, to be the best, you got to beat the best. So if you're not gonna for the Bills, I don't know what we're doing.
They've been competing pretty well, I will say, against the Bills. Relatively speaking, I know there's been a couple of bloodbaths, but relatively speaking, they've been playing a pretty game. I was at the Mike White one. That one was a little tough. It was close at first and it kind of fell apart. And then this last one where things were going and Zach Wilson had the beautiful Keelan Cole 4th down touchdown. That was beautiful. But really, they've been competing pretty good against Buffalo. It's a hard ask. Buffalo's a great team, super well constructed. And then you have Josh Allen, who's made leaps and bounds. But again, you've been competing. Now it's just taking it to the next level, trying to split with New England, trying to split with Miami, and just, a YOLO kind of effort against Buffalo. I think that's the key. But you know what? I could see it if I squint.
Me as well. It's going to be an exciting year. I'm very, very excited, and it's going to be an exciting next few weeks with the draft process wrapping up, and hopefully, I don't know maybe another free agent, probably not anything crazy, but Keelan Cole bringing back, I wouldn't be mad.
That'd be nice. I'd like that.
Something, but either way, I think the optimism is warranted for the 2022 New York Jets. Maybe not for playoff berth, but on the doorstep, like you said. Paul, thank you so much for coming on. I very much appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, this was amazing. Thank you so much for having me, man. Well, what a cool show this is. It's an honor to be on this, man. This was sweet.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Make sure you check out, I'll put your Twitter handle and whatnot so everyone can check out your stuff. Yeah, and thank you all for tuning in as always. We got episode number 30 next week, so that's it's pretty cool. All right, that's it from me. See you guys next time.